second.
So at this point, we're going to have comments from organizations and different civic associations who've asked to speak. Each organization was given a number. Right now, we have 6. They will be allowed 2 minutes, and they can come to the front of the podium here. First is Mr. Strong.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Dr. Keith Strong, and I'm president of the Woodmore Civic Association, and have 3 main reasons for opposing Measure D. First, the Council has not given us any cogent explanation for needing 2 additional members. What vital aspects of county government are being neglected because there are too few hands at the wheel? If they cannot answer that question, and they haven't so far, we should not be doing this. The second reason is that this proposal seems to be more about finding a way for some council members to get around the term limits imposed upon them by the voters. If the council wants at-large members while respecting the expressed wishes of the voters, then they should have made these new positions subject to the current term limits. Then a councillor could serve no more than 2 consecutive terms as a district or at-large representative, or 1 term of each. But after that, their tenure on the council should be over. Lastly, this will cost us a lot of extra money when we have severe financial problems. They can't collect our garbage as often as before, but they can employ 2 new councillors and a lot of associated staff. That seems to me rather inconsistent. Just consider for a moment how we could spend that money in ways that would benefit the county more than 2 extra bureaucrats. If this is necessary, and even today I've not heard of convincing reasons why it is, perhaps the council should show us how committed they are to this idea by cutting their own salaries, staff and expenses by 9/11ths to make this change revenue neutral. There's an old adage, too many cooks spoil the broth, and our county's broth seems rather spoiled. Adding 2 more cooks is not the answer. That just potentially extends the terms of those who have presided over the problems in the kitchen. Perhaps we need some new cooks with a different recipe. I urge everyone to oppose this unnecessary measure. Thank you.
Joe E. Bryce from the Prince George's County Civic Federation.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Joe Bryce, and I am the president of Prince George's County Civic Federation. And there was a question earlier about who was funding what. I'm also the committee chair for the No One Question D, and Mary Force Tucker, treasurer. Okay, we are truly a grassroots organization. I heard some things here today that caused me to change my prepared commentary because I wanted to focus on leadership and the way that the council has gone about attempting to promote this. But another thing that I've heard here from a former mentor of mine, Mr. Jim Eastet, when I was a homeowner association president, when he was a council member, I used to go to his office in the evenings, and he taught me different things about the county. But I heard some things about the council and governments and us getting our clock cleaned and other things. I think back to those times, and I think that might be a little bit of revisionist history or a little bit of forgetfulness. Because at the time that I used to go see Mr. Eastet, the big problems in the county were the policing, crime, and the schools. Those were the reasons that were given for development not coming to Prince George's County, and they weren't going to come unless those things were addressed. Well, we've gotten for the policing, I think that our police officers do a fantastic job. The MOU from DOJ, or Department of Justice, had a good part of that. I love the way our policing is done now. I think that we're a model. The schools still have a long way to go. But there was another thing that was in there. We were the victim of redlining, okay? And if we were the victim of redlining that was obvious in Prince George's County, you look at the complexity and complexion of those nice folks who are in the other areas of the Council of Governments, et cetera. They didn't look like the majority of Prince George's County. And I can't help but think that that may have played a bit of part in the development of Prince George's County, or the lack of it. Well, now we also take some of the share of not developing, because my organization, Prince George's County Civic Federation, was one of those that promoted TRIM, promoted Homestead Act, we promoted the hospital system, and we fought for it. We've got standing orders, and we haven't turned it over. That anytime someone goes against term limits, we're going to fight it. They go against TRIM, we're going to fight it. I would say, if I go back to my last part of my what I was going to originally say, leadership. Maybe some of these things, maybe there's time to revisit them. I don't know. Some were passed in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s. Maybe we want to revisit them, but have the leadership to get out there and discuss put it forward, make it a grassroots effort, and not from political and legislative fiat. I think that that's the end of my cogent statement, so I will give 30 seconds back. Thank you.
Latricia Bach, please tell me how to pronounce it. I don't want it.
Suchitra
Such-
Balachandran.
Thank you. Suchitra Balachandran from the West College Park Association.
Good morning. My name is Suchitra Balachandran. I'm the president of the West College Park Civic Association, and I'm here speaking on behalf of our board. I think this is really an issue of basic democracy. In 1992, citizens in Prince George's County collected 10,000 signatures, 10,000 valid signatures, to put term limits, the question of term limits on the ballot, and that was then approved by the people. And since then, elected officials have repeatedly tried to undermine this. And frankly, this is getting rather old. And my board is saying enough is enough. You know, we're saying stop playing games with our county charter. This is our charter. It's the charter that we, as residents of Prince George's County, agreed to be governed under. If you want to change that charter, then take that issue back to the people. That's not what happened when Question D was put on the ballot. What happened was the county council in June introduced a bill, and I knew that bill had been introduced. On behalf of my civic association, I emailed our county council member and expressed concerns about it. I never heard back from our county council member. I reminded our county council member that not to vote on this, that we were opposed to it. Our county council member said, I have a lot of emails and I will get back to you. And she got back to us, but it was after she had voted for it. You know, I mean, this is a problem. I mean, if you are serious, if this is a serious issue about county governance, then bring that issue to us, discuss it, and then, you know, get our buy-in on it. There was a hearing before the county council, which the county council members promptly ignored everything everybody said. But there were gems of wisdom in that hearing. There was a member of our community who stood up and said, it's going to cost $1 million to fund these 2 seats. And you're telling me this job is complicated, so let me tell you what to do. Set up a citizen academy with that $1 million. Educate us on what it takes to run for council and what it takes to govern on council. Then we'll all be ahead of the game, and you'll get many informed citizens running for the council. And finally, the point I want to make is it's going to cost between $300,000 and $400,000 to run for an at-large position in the council. We do not have public financing in Prince George's County. Montgomery County, which several members have said have at-large positions, have voted to put in public financing. Let us first work to put public financing for all our council seats so that grassroots members of our community can run for the council. And I think, you know, on that note, we need to stop and take back our democracy, because if we sit back and let this happen to us, year after year, we are in big trouble. Thank you.
Very good. Tammy Jones from the Camp Springs Civic Association.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Tammy Jones. I'm president of the Camp Springs Civic Association. I spoke in front of County Council in opposition of CB 40. And there were several reasons for that. One, we did not have enough information. The second reason was because of affordability. And the third reason was because of transparency. So here we are today, and still opposed because, one, we don't have enough information, two, because of affordability, and three, because of lack of transparency. Now, at that county council meeting, yes, the majority of the people spoke in opposition of that bill. So the council knew what the public thought about that position. At our last Civic Association meeting, we had over 100 people attending that meeting. In between the time that we spoke at that county council meeting and the time that we had our Civic Association meeting, I did not hear anything from anybody at county council asking whether or not they could come and speak before our council or civic association meeting, and I'm sure everybody or most of the council members know that the Camp Springs Civic Association is one of the largest civic associations in the county, or well attended in any case, and that would have been a perfect opportunity to inform the public. So we are still concerned about transparency. If there is an issue for at-large seats, if they're interested in having at-large seats, because at-large members will look at the entire interests of the county, then maybe the entire county council should be at-large, because everyone needs to look at the entire interests of the county and not just your district. And so I see that my time is just about up. I would just like to thank the League of Women Voters for taking taking this time to inform the public. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Joseph Solomon from the Prince George's Hyattsville, what is this?
That's okay.
Municipal group? Tell me.
Yes. I'm the president-elect of the Prince George's County Municipal Association, as well as a council member in the city of Hyattsville. Neither one of those organizations have taken a position on this measure, so I address you today as simply Joseph. I appreciate the League of Women Voters for providing this educational forum. I really hope to gain a little bit more knowledge on the proposition when it was initially presented, but instead, what I've heard today is a bunch of speculation from a side who clearly opposes this measure on a basis that they haven't even explained. What I've heard is a lot about, oh, we should use this money toward education projects. Never mind the fact that there are $500 million in education and public safety projects proposed on the same ballot. You have a ballot where you're going to vote for $500 million in bond bills to fund education and public safety projects, and the county council is simply saying, but if you give us another $1 million, we can figure out how we don't have to, over the course of the next few years, use your debt service to have to cut public services, because that's what happened this time around. Your debt service was used to cut, because they had to fund debt service, they had to cut your trash collection. And so now they're saying, give us $1 million and we won't have to do those things in the future. The other thing, and this is the League of Women Voters, the reason why I think that it's important is because nobody addressed the fact that we don't have a woman elected countywide to address policy issues in Prince George's County anymore. And this provides an opportunity to put that on the ballot again. When Donna Edwards left, there was a void, there is a void that remains that's not going to be on the ballot. When family sick leave came up at the Prince George's County Council, that was an opportunity to address issues that women face across this county in a way that we haven't seen in decades. But we didn't have a woman leading from a policy perspective because we don't have that anymore, and the county council voted it down. That could have helped to fix pay inequality, done more for pay inequality in this county than we've seen in decades, and it got voted down because we don't have a countywide woman elected who can lead on these issues. So there's a lot of smoke and mirrors being presented. It's going to cost $1 million. We don't have $1 million. You have $500 million that you're going to fund on this, and nobody's telling you to vote against that. They're just telling you to vote against 10 years from now when they have to cut something else. And then we won't have an opportunity. I'm sorry for running over my time. And then they're going to come back to you and tell you that they don't have any solutions on how to fix it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to go into, what we're going to do, we have a little extra time, so we're going to allow each one of the panelists to have a 2-minute speech to close out.
I want to thank the League of Women Voters for this opportunity to present our views relative to the 2 council seats at large. And I've heard a great deal here this morning, the opposition as well as those that are in favor of. I'm old school. I started to vote at the age of 18, and I have voted ever since. And I can remember when we started, it wasn't about slates, It wasn't about money. It was about getting out and recruiting and voting, door knocking, all of those things that got us people in positions, and especially in the African American community, those that are elected now that remain on Capitol Hill and have been there for a number of years. Had they been term limited, many of the things that have occurred today would not be favorable to us as a people. So what I look at is I look at voting as being the key, and if someone is concerned about who's going to be elected to one of those at-large seats, then we need to prepare to get out to vote, to get on the streets, and not be concerned about slates and about where it's going to be a current council member or someone that has shown an interest in the community. I'm a little tired of people who have never done anything other than ran for office. Okay, never did anything in the community, but will come out to the civics and other organizations and say, I'd like to run for office. Well, what have you done for us lately? That's my question. So that's my close in terms of this. I would like to see the approval of the two council at-large positions.
Thank you. Mr. Easton?
Thank you. Let me first thank the League of Women Voters for putting on this forum. It brings back a lot of memories. Particularly, it tells me about one of the reasons why I never wanted to hold public office again, and have not since I left office in 2002. So I haven't changed my thinking there. You know, what concerns me, and it concerned me when I was in public office, is it's so easy to say no. I mean, that's the easiest thing in the world. I'm against this, you know, to call people names and to talk about shadowy conspiracies and all of that. Most of my career in government, I didn't see any of that materialize. Yes, we've had periods where we've had corrupt individuals. You're always going to have that. But I don't worry about that. Most of the people who work for county government, most of the people who hold office in county government or who have held office are there for one reason, and that's to serve the public. If you're not there for that reason, then you should get out. I believe that you should be aware in July of this year, the Business Roundtable commissioned a poll that we do periodically for our quality of life index that we do as a public service. Here are the top issues by county voters in July of this year: crime and public safety, public schools, jobs and economic development, that was third. Taxes didn't come into fourth. So apparently not everybody's obsessed with the fact that you know, they're paying a certain amount of taxes. Ethics and corruption in government was next. That's down from number 2 just a few years ago. So people are having more confidence in our government. Transportation and mass transit. And then last was the budget and spending. Now that's from your fellow citizens. This poll was conducted by Hart Yang Garin, one of the leading national pollsters. We also asked about Question D. At that time, when the voters were given information, 53% of the people said that they would vote for the measure and 29% said they would oppose. I don't know that this room is totally representative of what that poll suggested.
Thank you. Mr. DeNoga?
Thank you for this educational forum. It's greatly needed by the public. I think it'd be educational if that poll was released. I think the public would like to know the questions that were put to the to the people, because polls have ways of getting to certain answers. I want to ask folks, if you want more information, go to www.noonquestiond.com. We have a lot of information. And contrary to the statement, no is not a word that's in the county council vocabulary. We say yes to just about everybody for everything. And I'm not the one that came up with that. Councilmember Mike Maloney said that years ago when he served on the county council, that we just don't know how to say no. We give things away we should never give away, but we do it. And that needs to change. Citizens want term limits, have wanted term limits. County council members have not wanted term limits. That has been the history of term limits in this county. To suggest otherwise, that things have changed. The county voters have voted for term limits in 1992, Some county council members put it on in 2000, turned down, 2004, turned down, 2014, turned down. Citizens are happy with it. And those of us on No on Question D have been around the county. We've given out over 10,000 flyers. We're doing this grassroots one by one. And the overwhelming response is no, no, no. Okay, we've had enough of this gamesmanship. So I don't think it's about name calling. It's about telling the truth about what's going on. And I think people have had, well, why do the citizens vote down term limits? Why do people vote down trim repeal? The universal answer to the question of why people voted no is, I don't trust my county officials. I was one of them, and it's embarrassing when people tell you they don't trust you. But that's the problem that we need to overcome. And putting stealth bills on ballots is not the way to instill confidence. If you want to instill confidence, run a process and let the people come together and say, is our county government structured right? How could we make it better? What do you think? That is not how this process worked. This was top down, late in the day, and that's why people who hear about it say, who came up with this idea, and why are they foisting it on us at the last second? Once again, thank you for providing us with the opportunity. NoOneQuestionD.com.
Ms. Dudley, closing words for us.
Thank you again to the League of Women Voters. And for those of you who don't know, in all disclosure, several years ago, about 10 or 15 years ago, I was the president of the Prince George's County League of Women Voters. I wear a different hat now as the president of the Prince George's County Educators Association. And Mr. Solomon, there is a woman in the county who is speaking out against issues and speaking for the people and speaking for public education. And I sit here before you with all of these handsome men ready to lead the charge against Question D. And I want you to understand that there is no confusion about what is being put before us today. I want to ask a couple of questions. How much will it cost to run for one of these county council races? County Executive Baker spent $1.2 million in his initial run for an at-large, for the county executive races at large. How much are these races going to cost? I don't have $1 million. When I ran for county council, it was a boots on the ground race. I ran against David Harrington. He beat me by 1%. I'm still mad about it, but I'll get over that. But the point is that I spent $30,000 that I raised doing fish fries. To run in an at-large county council race, you are going to have to raise $500,000 for one of these seats. There's going to be big money. You got to have public financing for these races. Number two, please note that every council member every single council member since term limits has been reelected. Nobody won one race and then didn't get reelected again. So really, we've been electing people for 8-year terms anyway. And I'm not saying that I agree with that. I think part of that is that the electorate just says, well, that's the way it's going to be. But it doesn't have to be that way. So I encourage everyone to really take a look at what we need to do. If you want some more information, you get this in the mail from the Board of Elections. That's why I brought it. I borrowed it from my friend here today. If you want to know what the Prince George's County Educators Association is doing and who we're supporting in this election, you can go to MarylandAppleBallot.com and you will see the candidates that we are supporting in this election, because I'm an educator and we do our homework, and that's why I'm here today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Cooper.
And again, thank you to League for this opportunity to speak about this important issue. Any assertion that the voters made before this, I think, is being disingenuous. I mean, I was at the hearing in June of the County Council. I testified, about 6 people testified. The overwhelming majority, over 60%, I would say 80% of the people who spoke were against it. The ones who were for it were people who have been elected office or had interest in that way. Same thing today. The majority of people who spoke to this microphone were against it. I heard one person who was for it, and he was an elected official. So I think it's disingenuous to say that the voters are not against it. You can cite polls if you want to. The polls that I think that matter are the election polls that happen on Election Day. And now the 3 times that something of term limits has come up, it has been rejected by voters. 3 times it has been rejected by voters. So to say that, changing the name of it and hiding it in this Question D is somehow make it better, I just think is not in reality. Again, there's a lot going on. Again, I'm head of the grassroots of the committee. We knock on a lot of doors, 1,000 doors in the county. I know you are surprised to think there are Republicans in the county, but this is an issue that has resonated. And it's an issue that a lot of residents, one of our strongest ones, is opposition to this. And so, and one of the reasons, again, as we're excited about the money that's in politics, I think it would be disingenuous not to look at where the money and follow the money. If you look at races, 91%, the Washington Post did an analysis 2014, 91% of races across the country 2014, the better funded candidate won. Okay, so it's not so much about, who's the best candidate, it's about who has the money to raise. And she was talking about in 2012 or 2010 with Rashawn Baker, he spent over $1.2 million on his race. That was half the money spent on the county executive race. There were 4 other candidates who barely matched what that one candidate won. And he got a lot of his money from corporations and business deals. So it's not negating that that's a bad thing per se, but just saying again that money does have an influence on politics, and having people who build those relationships over years makes it more likely that they can raise the type of money to fund these seats. So these at-large seats would be held by career politicians, would be held by people who can raise the money. Oh, I have 15 more seconds left.
I'm sorry.
I have 15 more seconds left, but nonetheless, and if you want to find out more information, our website is pggop.com. That's pggop.com. Thank you.
All righty. I'm sorry. And Mr. Arrington, you're the last but not least.
Thank you very much, and thank the League of Women Voters for convening this exercise. And I want to say I love Teresa Dudley. I look forward to the day when we have a discussion about where we want to take this county, and not a conversation where we think that politicians are bought by money or that they're so influenced by money that they can't see beyond the trees. I do look forward to the day of public financing elections. I've always supported public finance elections. I look forward to the day when our property values will be on par with our regional with our region. That we're not in a place where we have the most houses underwater, where in fact then that people are coming to this county because of we have public schools. That's what this real conversation is about. It's not about whether or not politicians are going to be bought, or who's buying politicians, or who's funding this or who's funding that. It's about where we want to take this county. And I think we're at a great place. I think we've had great leadership this year with the county executive. I think, and what I would argue is that we have to then advance some of those principles. But furthermore, we need an agenda. We need an agenda that says that we can compete with anybody in the region, that we deserve the right goods and services of this region, that we don't have to send out, that some of us, don't have to make choices of whether or not we have to send our children to private school or public school. That in fact we do support teachers, that our teachers are the highest paid in the region. That's the kind of conversation I want to have. And I think that what Question D does, whether or not you think it was inartfully done or not, I think it begins to say what is the kind of leadership that we need and what we want that begins to advance us in a way that gets us to the place where we all want to be, where we have living wage jobs, where we're bringing in economic development, where we have open space, where we have a strong environment. That's what we want in Prince George's County. And I think that Question D is the beginning of that conversation, certainly not the end.
So we hope that this has been informative for you. We want to thank our panelists, Mr. Harrington, Mr. Edwards, Mr. Estep, Mr. Denogo, Mrs. Dudley, Mr. Cooper. We thank you very much for coming out on a Saturday morning and participating with us and informing us and educating us on this issue. We also want to thank Camp Springs Civic Association, the leadership of Prince George's County, the links, Jack and Jill, Note Question D, Prince George's County Education Association, Republican Central Committee of Prince George's County, South County Democratic Club of Prince George's County, and the Woodmore Civic Association. We thank you all for coming out today. We encourage you all to become a part of the League of Women Voters. We take men. And we hope that you have been enlightened about the question, and it will help you make a more educated decision. Thank you so much and have a great day.